My mother always had a way of making me feel like I was the least important person in the family. My older sister, Jessica, could do almost anything and somehow turn it into an achievement. If Jessica got a promotion, my parents ordered champagne. If Jessica bought a new handbag, Mom wanted pictures. If Jessica posted a vacation photo, Dad called her the next morning just to hear every detail. And then there was me, Emily, the daughter who was always expected to help, the daughter who was supposedly between jobs, the daughter who was never quite good enough. For the past 8 months, I had been unemployed. At least, that was what my family believed. What they didn't know was that losing my corporate job had been the best thing that ever happened to me. I had spent years working in event management, organizing corporate conferences, charity dinners, private celebrations, and high-end parties. After I was laid off, I decided not to rush into another 9-to-5 job. Instead, I started my own event planning business from my apartment. At first, it was tiny. 1 client became 2. 2 became 5. 5 became 15. I was working 12-hour days, but I loved it. And after months of saving, planning, and networking, I had finally reached the point where I was about to sign a major contract with one of the biggest event companies in our city. I hadn't told my family, not because I wanted to hide my success, because I already knew exactly what they would say. They would find a way to make it about Jessica. And I was right. Everything changed the Saturday my sister decided to throw her birthday party. 50 guests, a huge backyard, a rented tent, a professional-looking dinner, music, decorations, drinks, the whole thing. 3 days before the party, Mom called me. "Emily, you're coming Saturday, right?" "Of course," I said. "Good, we need someone to handle the food." I paused. "Wait, what? You're good at that sort of thing?" "Mom, Jessica is the one throwing the party." "Yes, but you're not working right now." There it was. I swallowed. "I actually have some work to do this weekend." Mom laughed. "Work?" "I'm starting my own business." "Emily, please." Her tone changed. "Don't make this difficult." I stared at my phone. "What do you mean?" "Your sister has a big day. She needs your help. You don't have a real job right now, so the least you can do is contribute." I wanted to tell her everything. About my business, about the clients, about the contract I was negotiating, about how much work I'd put into building something of my own, but instead I simply said, "Fine, I'll come." Saturday morning, I arrived at my parents' house at 8 a.m. I immediately realized what I'd gotten myself into. The backyard was a disaster. Boxes were everywhere. Tables hadn't been arranged. The kitchen was filled with dirty dishes. There were bags of groceries covering the counters, and Jessica was standing in the middle of it all wearing a white dress and holding a mimosa. She looked at me and smiled. "Oh, good, you're here." I looked around. "Where is everyone?" "Everyone?" "The people who are helping." She laughed. "Mom said you could handle the kitchen." I looked at my mother. Mom was sitting at the dining table drinking coffee. "Emily knows what she's doing," she said. Jessica smiled. "That's why she's my favorite little helper." I forced a smile. Then I got to work. For the next 5 hours, I cooked, I chopped vegetables, I prepared salads, I baked desserts, I arranged appetizers, I washed dishes, I cleaned counters, I carried heavy boxes outside, I fixed decorations, I even repaired a broken table because nobody else knew how. Every time I finished one task, Mom found another. "Emily, the glasses aren't polished." "Emily, the bathroom needs cleaning." "Emily, the ice isn't outside." "Emily, Jessica needs her gift table arranged." "Emily, can you check the cake?" At one point, I walked into the living room and found Jessica sitting comfortably on the couch, scrolling through her phone. I looked at her. "You're not helping." She didn't even look up. "It's my party." I laughed quietly. "Right." Then she looked at me. "You should be happy Mom lets you be useful." That sentence stayed with me. But I said nothing. Around 4:30 p.m., I was standing in the kitchen washing another stack of dishes when Mom walked in. "Emily, why isn't the dining room finished?" "I've been cooking for hours." "So?" "I haven't stopped." Mom sighed dramatically. "You always make everything sound harder than it is." I turned off the faucet. Mom, I've been working since 8 this morning. She crossed her arms. And what else were you going to do today? I stared at her. I told you, I have work. She laughed. Not a small laugh, a loud, humiliating laugh. Then she looked toward Jessica and said, "Did you hear that? She says she has work." Jessica giggled. Mom turned back to me. "Emily, you're the only person here without a real job." My face went hot. "I have a business." "A business?" She shook her head. "Posting things online and helping people plan parties isn't a career." "It's more than you think." Mom smiled. "Then why are you here washing dishes?" I didn't answer. She stepped closer. "Because you don't have anywhere else to be." Jessica laughed from the other room. That was the moment something inside me broke. Not because of one insult, because of years of them. Years of being compared. Years of being treated like the family assistant. Years of hearing that Jessica was successful while I was the disappointment. I looked at the sink. Then I looked at my hands. And suddenly, I smiled. Mom frowned. "What?" "Nothing." I dried my hands. Then I took my phone from my pocket. Mom watched me. "What are you doing?" "Making a phone call." "To who?" I didn't answer. I walked outside. I stood near the driveway and called the person I'd been waiting to call all week. "Hi, Daniel." Daniel was the director of operations for one of the largest event companies in the city. We had been negotiating a contract for nearly 2 months. "Emily," he said, "perfect timing. I was about to call you." "I've made my decision." There was silence. Then he said, "Does that mean you're accepting the contract?" "Yes." He laughed. "That's fantastic. Congratulations." "Thank you." "I'm sending the final agreement tonight. Once you sign, your company will be our preferred event planning partner for the next 12 months. I smiled. "I'm ready." We talked for another few minutes. Then I hung up. I looked back at the house. My mother was watching me through the window. I could tell she was suspicious. I walked inside. Mom immediately asked, "Who was that?" "Someone from work." She laughed again. "Work?" I nodded. "Yes." Then I walked into the kitchen. I picked up my purse. Jessica came rushing in. "Where are you going?" "Home." She stared at me. "But the guests will be here soon." "I know." "You can't leave." I looked at her. "I've done everything you asked." "You're supposed to stay and help." "No." Jessica's smile disappeared. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, I'm done." Mom appeared behind her. "Emily, don't be childish." I looked directly at my mother. "I'm not being childish." I pointed toward the kitchen. "I cooked the food." Then toward the dining room. "I cleaned the house." Then outside. "I arranged the tables." "I prepared the desserts." "I fixed the decorations." "I've done enough." Mom's face hardened. "You're really going to abandon your sister?" "No," I smiled. "I'm finally refusing to abandon myself." Then I walked out. I expected screaming. I expected my mother to follow me. Instead, nobody said anything. I drove home. For the first time in years, I felt free. I took a shower, changed clothes, and sat down at my desk. My laptop was already open. There was an email waiting for me. The subject line read, "Contract approved. Welcome to the team." I smiled. Then I signed the agreement. My company was officially in business. About an hour later, my phone started ringing. It was Jessica. I almost didn't answer. But something told me I should. I picked up. "Hello?" Jessica was crying, not angry, not annoyed, terrified. "Emily? What happened? Who did you call?" I frowned. "What? Who did you call before you left?" "Someone from work." "No!" Her voice cracked. "Mom just saw him and oh my God, she's—" "Jessica, slow down." "He came to the party." I sat up. "Who?" "Daniel." My heart stopped. "Daniel? What is he doing there?" "I don't know." She started crying harder. Mom asked him why he was here. He said he was meeting the owner of the event company handling our party. I was confused. I don't understand. Jessica took a shaky breath. He said your company had been hired to handle the event. I stared at my phone. What? He said your company. I slowly stood up. Then I understood. When I had signed the contract, Daniel had told me there was an urgent issue with the party. Apparently, Jessica's original event planner had canceled at the last minute. Daniel's company had been brought in to salvage the event, and because my new company was now their preferred partner, Daniel had assigned the emergency job to me. But there was one problem. I wasn't there. Jessica continued crying. Mom asked him who owned your company. And? He said, she paused. He said, Emily. I closed my eyes. Jessica whispered, Mom didn't believe him. What happened next? She asked him if you were really the owner. And? He showed her the contract. There was silence. Then Jessica said something I'll never forget. Mom just stood there. I could almost picture it. My mother, standing in the middle of the party, holding a printed copy of my contract. Finally realizing that the daughter she had called unemployed had just signed a major business deal. But that wasn't the end. Daniel had one more surprise. He told my mother that my company had been selected because of my reputation. He told her that several major clients had recommended me. And then he said something that made Jessica call me crying. He said, Emily is one of the most talented event planners I've worked with. My mother heard every word. For years she had told everyone I had no career. Now a respected professional was standing in front of her 50 guests, explaining that I had built a company from nothing, and I wasn't there to hear it. I didn't need to be. The truth had finally arrived without me. Jessica whispered, Emily, please come back. No. Please. Why? Mom wants to talk to you. I laughed softly. About what? I don't know. Then Jessica said, she wants you to save the party. I looked at the clock. The party had already started. I could hear the desperation in her voice. Why? Because the original planner canceled, and Daniel said the only person who can fix everything is you. I was silent. For years I had dreamed about hearing those words, not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted them to finally understand my value. Jessica began crying again. Please, Emily. I closed my eyes. Then I said, I'll help. She sighed with relief, but not for free. Silence. What? You heard me. How much? I gave her a number. It was my standard emergency event management rate. Jessica nearly choked. That's insane. No. I smiled. That's my rate. She didn't know what to say. Finally, she agreed. 20 minutes later, I arrived at the party. Everyone was staring at me. The same people who had watched me carry boxes that morning were now watching me walk through the gate wearing a black blazer and carrying my laptop. Daniel came toward me. Ready? I nodded. Let's save this party. For the next 2 hours, I took control. I reorganized the catering team. I fixed the seating arrangement. I changed the music schedule. I moved the dessert table. I solved a problem with the lighting. I coordinated the servers. I even found a replacement for the missing cake topper. Slowly, the party transformed. Guests began complimenting the food. People praised the organization. Jessica's friends started asking who had planned everything, and Jessica had to answer. My sister. My mother stood quietly near the back door. Eventually, she walked over to me. Emily. I looked at her. She didn't smile. She didn't know how. I didn't know. I nodded. I know. I thought... She stopped. I thought you weren't doing anything. I was. I see that now. I looked at her. Mom, I didn't need you to believe in me before I succeeded. She looked down. But I did need you to respect me. Her eyes became wet. I was wrong. Those 3 words meant more than any apology she could have given, but I wasn't finished. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. I handed it to her. What is this? My business contract. She looked at the first page. Her eyes widened. This is... Yes. She read the number. Her mouth fell open. This is your annual contract? I nodded. Yes. She looked at me. How did you do this? I smiled. I worked. For once, she had nothing to say. Then Jessica came over. Emily? I looked at her. She smiled nervously. I owe you an apology, too. I waited. She took a breath. I was jealous. That surprised me. You? She nodded. You were always different. You didn't follow the same path as me. I thought that meant you were failing. I said nothing. But now I realize, she continued, you were building something I never had the courage to build. I looked at my sister. Then I smiled. Thank you for saying that. The party ended successfully. Guests left happy. The house was clean, the food was finished, and Jessica's birthday became a success. But something had changed. For the first time, I didn't feel like the family helper. I felt like an equal. A week later, my mother called me. She didn't ask me to clean anything. She didn't ask me to cook. She didn't mention Jessica. She simply said, Emily, I'm proud of you. I was quiet for a moment. Then I said, Thank you, Mom. She continued, I wish I had said it sooner. I smiled. So do I. After we hung up, I looked around my apartment. My old laptop was still sitting on the desk, the same desk where I had worked late nights while everyone thought I was doing nothing. On the wall was a small whiteboard. At the top, I had written, my company, my future, my rules. Below it were the names of my first 5 clients. Now there were 27, and more were coming. I never became successful just to prove my mother wrong. I became successful because I finally stopped waiting for someone else to tell me I was worth something. That Saturday, my family thought they were humiliating the unemployed daughter who had nowhere else to go. They didn't realize they were standing in front of the woman who had just built a business from the ground up. They thought they were making me feel small. Instead, they gave me the final push I needed to walk away, and when they finally discovered who I had called that afternoon, they realized something much more important than my new contract. They realized I had never been the failure in the family. I had simply been the person they never bothered to understand. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't screaming. It isn't revenge at all. It's quietly building a life so successful that the people who once looked down on you have no choice but to look up.